We're going to dive into a really powerful idea for looking at our inner well-being. It comes from a talk by Stephen Amoa, and he calls it spiritual dehydration. And honestly, this concept might completely change how you think about your own spiritual health. Okay, let's start with a simple biological fact. Our bodies, they're made up of about 70 to 80% water. I mean, we all know that hydration is absolutely crucial for our physical health, right? It gets rid of toxins, it keeps us energized, it just helps our bodies work. We drink water every single day, most of us without even thinking about it.
But here's the big question that Stephen Omoa throws out there. We're so focused on hydrating our bodies, but when's the last time you stopped to think, am I hydrating myself spiritually? It's a really interesting thought, isn't it? Because it's totally possible to be spiritually drained and not even have a clue.
And this whole idea is really built on the concept that spiritual thirst is just as real as physical thirst. I mean, this invitation here, it suggests there's actually a source out there to quench that thirst. Like a kind of living water for the soul.
So what is spiritual dehydration exactly? Well, it's that state of being totally drained or just lacking on the inside. And the really tricky part is how it can sneak into our daily lives, into our habits, our attitudes, and a lot of the time we don't even connect the dots.
Okay, so how can we even tell if this is happening to us? Well, Stephen Amoa lays out a kind of diagnosis with 5 key symptoms. And what's so fascinating is that every single spiritual symptom has a direct physical parallel to dehydration. Let's break them down.
All right, first up, bad breath. Yeah, you heard me. Physically being dehydrated can cause bad breath. So what's the spiritual equivalent? Unwholesome talk, bad language. It's this idea that what comes out of our mouths is almost always a reflection of what's really going on inside.
And this quote, it just nails it, doesn't it? For out of the abundance of the heart, his mouth speaks. When our inner well is running dry, our words can get kind of careless, maybe even negative. It's not just about what we're saying, but that deeper lack of intention in how we're saying it. Okay, symptom number 2 is fatigue. We've all been there, right? When you're physically dehydrated, you just feel so tired and drained. The spiritual parallel to that, a lack of service. That natural desire to help out, to contribute to others, it just starts to fade away. And I think this is such a cool way to reframe the whole idea of service. It's not a chore, it's an overflow. When your spirit is full and hydrated, you don't just serve, you go above and beyond. But when you're empty, man, even the smallest act can feel like a massive burden. Next up, we've got overheating. Think about it like a car engine that overheats when it's low on coolant. That's kind of what happens to our tempers when we're spiritually running on empty. The spiritual symptom here is being easily angered, a short fuse. And what's so important to get here is that this isn't just about being in a bad mood. No, it's about a totally disproportionate reaction. It's when the tiniest little things suddenly have the power to make you completely explode. It's like a warning light flashing on your dashboard, telling you your internal regulation system is way off. Okay, let's move on to the 4th sign. Now, in cases of extreme physical dehydration, you can get these awful, painful, involuntary muscle spasms. The spiritual counterpart to that is a lack of self-control, that feeling like we're just losing our grip. So the idea here is that our spiritual wellness is what gives us the strength for discipline. When we're dehydrated spiritually, our resolve gets weak, and it just makes it so much easier for habits and actions we know are wrong to kind of creep into our lives. And that brings us to the final symptom, lightheadedness or dizziness. When you're physically dehydrated, your thinking can get all foggy. Well, spiritually, this translates into making unwise choices and just having really poor judgment. And this is especially true when it comes to those big, life-altering decisions. Stephen Amoa suggests that when we have that lack of spiritual connection, it can really cloud our judgment, and it can lead us down paths we probably wouldn't choose if we were thinking clearly and feeling grounded.
So we've seen the symptoms, but what's the cure, right? The good news is, now that we've diagnosed the problem, Stephen Amoa's framework also gives us a clear 4-step prescription for spiritual rehydration. And you know what? The recovery plan is beautifully simple. First, you come. You just approach the source exactly as you are. Second, you drink. You actively take in what's being offered. Third, you rest. You stop trying to earn it all and just learn to be still. And finally, trade. And this one involves a really powerful exchange. Okay, let's zoom in on this final step for a second, because it's arguably the most powerful one. Amoa presents this not just as a simple action, but as a profound divine exchange.
This slide right here really reframes the whole idea of surrender. See, it's not about giving up, it's about trading up. You hand over all the heavy stuff, your burdens, your anxieties, your sorrows, and in return, you get things that are light, rest, grace, and hope. I mean, what a deal.
And this really gets to the ultimate takeaway here. Yeah, making that trade, it requires faith, and that can feel hard sometimes. But the promised return, the freedom and the life you gain is just so worth it.
So at the end of the day, the core message of this entire framework is that recovery isn't about trying harder or more frantic effort. It's actually the complete opposite. True spiritual rehydration is found in the quiet moments, in learning to be still and just rest. And so that brings us to the final thought I want to leave you with. If rest is really the key to rehydration, then it's worth asking ourselves a pretty direct and personal question. What is it in our lives, in our own minds, or in our schedules that's preventing us from truly resting?